The Senior Special Assistant to the President on Special Needs and Equal Opportunities, Muhammad Abba Isa, has announced that public offices lacking accessibility for people with disabilities will be sealed. A public building shall be constructed with the necessary accessibility aids, such as lifts where necessary, ramps, and any other facility that shall make them accessible to and usable by persons with disabilities. The act reads. Abba Isa said ministries, departments, and agencies neglecting to restructure for easy accessibility for people with disabilities will be closed as part of the Disability Inclusion Implementation Policy. This will be the focus of the program tonight. Thanks for joining us. I am Eucharia Clinton. Welcome. Now joining us in the studio to bring his own perspective to the conversation is the Executive Secretary, National Commission for Persons with Disability, James David Lalu. You're welcome to Nigeria today.
Thank you.
Now, the announcement by the federal government, and of course, this is also in trying to enforce the act that was, signed into law in January 2019. Now, tell us, how well is the Disability Act being implemented, and across Nigeria, and what progress have we made so far?
Thank you so very much. Implementation of the Disability Act, as you may know, touches on different sectors, from education to health, accessibility, empowerment, and different other aspects. On the issue of accessibility to the built environment is something that is very critical. And on the issue of this, the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, since the inauguration of the commission, we have started the development of a standardization document that will provide the standard accessibility facilities. One thing that we understand is that when you talk about accessibility, we have to make sure that we develop a guide that everybody will not be led by this guide, a standard document, so that once we see a particular accessibility facility in Kano, it should be the same as the accessibility facility is supposed to be provided in Lagos. So these are the standardization documents. The National Commission for Persons with Disabilities work with relevant stakeholders in the building environment and building industry to develop the National Accessibility Regulation. This is the National Accessibility Regulation. As you see, this regulation provides the necessary standardization in the accessibility facilities. Based on the provision of the Act, Section 6, it made it very clearly that accessibility to the built environment, everybody, 5 years have been provided as a transitory period. Within these 5 years, every building is supposed to adjust to accommodate the disability community. Since the establishment of the Commission, we have worked with relevant stakeholders and partners to create the necessary awareness, draw attention of the public on the need to provide accessibility facilities in their respective environment. So with this, now the issue of enforcement has come. The 5 years started from the 17th of January 2019, now to 16th of January 2024. This time have ended. Now we are in the enforcement period. So at the enforcement period, the regulation made it very clearly there are specific standardization, measurements, and different other things that have been developed here. And then when you go into the regulation, there is what we call compliance and enforcement section in the regulation. From the compliance and enforcement section here, we have worked also to provide the necessary instrument that will guide each and every partner. One, we have the National Accessibility Compliance Certificate. Second, we have the National Disability Compliance Certificate. These two certificates are very key and important. If you have a public building is hereby defined as a building being utilized by a minimum of 10 people per day. So if you have a market, a mosque, or different other buildings, they are supposed to be made accessible for persons with disabilities. This building are supposed to apply to the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities to acquire the National Accessibility Certificate. Once you are able to apply, the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities is expected to go. We have an accessibility department. The accessibility department have an expert in that area, so they are expected to go and do an accessibility audit and evaluation of your building. And after doing that, they are supposed to provide the necessary recommendation for the issuance of the National Accessibility Compliance Certificate for this building. When you acquire the National Certificate, then you are free to paste the certificate on the entrance of your building to show that this building is truly accessible for persons with disabilities. There is also periodic review of these accessibility facilities that have been posted in the building. For National Disability Compliance Certificate, it has to do with companies, corporate bodies, different organizations are supposed to acquire the National Disability Compliance Certificate. The National Disability Compliance Certificate here, first of all, there are criteria that need to be evaluated from that organization. The policy of the organization need to be reviewed to make sure that it is not discriminatory. Number two, the organization's environment need to be reviewed as well to make sure that the environment is accessible for persons with disabilities. Number three, the employment in this organization, Section 29 made it categorically clear the 5% of employment opportunities are supposed to be provided for persons with disabilities. And therefore, these organizations have to be reviewed on their employment status, their capacity of the staffs, and how are their attitude towards persons with disabilities. So when you bring all this together, after this review, a final recommendation can be made on the organization to be issued with the National Disability Compliance Certificate. For the private sector, we have a network for the private sector. The network has been formulated 2 years ago in Lagos. Just the last 2 weeks, I was in Lagos for the second annual conference of the Nigeria Business Disability Network. These organizations,
I will have to stop you there, James. You've talked so much about the act and what the act entails. Now, we are in the enforcement, period, just like you rightly said. You know, the act gave a kind of 5 years grace, and this 5 years, of course, expired in January, just like you rightly mentioned also.
Yes.
Now, in your own opinion, so far, because your commission is given a mandate to ensure that some of these things, effectively, followed, and of course protecting the rights of persons living with disability. In your opinion, how far has these act been implemented so far from this within this period that has been given?
Thank you so very much. We have stages in the enforcement. First of all, it requires a lot of capacity building. We need to build capacities of experts who will understand the accessibility, compliance, accessibility regulation. Because one important thing here is all of these experts, the civil engineers, quantity surveyors, architects, when you look at their curriculum in the universities, they pass through, does not cover this. And then when we have a meeting with some of them, we understand that truly that there is a gap. And then one of the important things here is for us to be able to develop the capacity of these experts and license them as independent accessibility consultants. So once we are able to complete that, then we are going to identify these consultants who are expected to do the accessibility audit in the whole of 774 local governments in Nigeria. They are expected to have at least one expert per local government. So when we have all of them in these places, proper enforcement of it will commence. We are going to work together with them. We have already developed a portal. The portal is already there, which every person can be able to use through the portal to now apply. Then these accessibility consultants that are being recommended or trained and licensed for your own local government, you are expected to invite them to come and evaluate the building. Each consultant is going to have a particular code. So once you do that, we depend on the report that will come from that trained consultant. because we are going to regulate the activities of these consultants on an annual basis. So the recommendation that will come from the consultants will now testify to us if your building is truly accessible and accommodated to persons with disabilities, and if you are truly qualified to be issued the certificate will be issued to you. But based on the provisions of the regulation and the provisions of the Act, it has given the Commission the power to seal buildings. So if you do not acquire this, you do not do this, then the building may be sealed at any time without any further notice, so that everybody will now understand that the right of persons with disabilities in Nigeria has come to stay. As I am saying earlier, our partnership with the private sector, they have developed interest. This Nigeria Disability Business Network, it involves Dangote group of companies, Access Bank, GTP Bank, and Kozon Nigeria PLC, as well as other different conglomerates are part of it. MTN and Airtel are part of it. All of these organizations have developed passion to see how they can be able to make their organizations very accessible. You may be surprised that MTN, you may be surprised that Access Bank, you may be surprised that some of these banks continue to contact the Commission for employment of persons with disabilities, which have been able to source out some expert persons with disabilities who are qualified, innovative, and we send to them, and they have been given employment today. Our people are bankers, and they are there doing their job.
Thank you very much. Now, we have been joined via Zoom by Ihakwaba Paul E., Executive Director, Global Hope and Justice Incorporated, a disability and human rights organization. He's also a legal practitioner. Thank you for joining us on Nigeria Today, Paul.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Now, the announcement has been made that public offices lacking accessibility for people with disabilities will be sealed. Now, what do you make out of these announcement?
Okay. Yeah. The announcement is timely, given the sense that after the enactment of the law, 5 years was given, as moratorium for institutions, whether public or private, to comply with the law. 5 years of grace before implementation. However, I am of the opinion that the government ought to have engaged, because what is lacking today is implementation of the law. And we know that the efficacy of law lies in its implementation. The reason why the implementation is low is because there is this lack of consciousness on what ought to be done, on what the rights of disabilities, of persons with disabilities. There is gross, ignorance by both the policymakers and the policy implementers on what ought to be, on how best to treat people with disabilities. My NGO have engaged some institutions, and in carrying out courtesy visits, advocacy visits to some of them, we discovered that the environment is grossly disability friendly. And we do not waste time to raise the issue and engage them, amicably. And what we hear is, oh, that is correct, that's right, sorry, it omitted our this thing, we didn't know that ought to be done, but you're right, we promise you it will be done. And in few weeks or months, true to their words, you come back there, they have fixed at least their stability. So that tells you that there is that lack of some conscious understanding as to what disability right is all about. So I enjoin the government through the commission to engage on conscious, there should be that nexus between the government agency in charge of disability and the NOAA, National Orientation Agency, which in my opinion is moribund. It's existing for existence sake. Their effect is not felt in this country for very many years. Under this democracy, NOAA has been, a pure moribund agency. So I think that the commission should work in nexus with them to create consciousness, to carry out some certain awareness campaign so that Nigerians themselves will own up this and see it as a moral obligation, as a moral duty. They do not need to wait until their process is sealed, as if they are forcing them to accommodate their own brothers and sisters. And I've always maintained that there is a thin line between ability and disability. Today you can be on this side, the following day you are there. Some of us was not born this way, including my friend who is there with you, the ES of Disability Commission. He wasn't born deaf. He was already in the high institution, and it came. So it can come to anybody at any given time. So if you do not make plan, my people say in Igbo that you do a man who is a palm wine tapper does not inform his kinsmen or his family to please boil water in case he falls. No, no one does that because nobody prays to fall. But fall can come. It is all about faith. So it is important, therefore, that this understanding be created through awareness so that Nigerians will have it as a moral obligation to ensure that there is a comprehensive accessibility for people with disabilities, not just ramp for those of us on wheelchair, accessibility for the hearing impaired. Many of them, our deaf sisters are suffering. Mostly when they are the blind, those of them who are pregnant, they go to the maternity, no communication, nothing, and they go home out of frustration. The blind, the same thing. So there should be a holistic, accessibility. I expect that as we are saying this thing now, my deaf brothers, assuming my brother here,
thank you very much, Paul. I'll come back to you. But then well, I would say it's an allegation against the National Orientation Agency that they are not being felt. I want to beg to disagree and tell you that National Orientation Agency have been doing quite a lot. They've been doing quite a lot. Well, even if it's acceptable to say there's more that needs to be done, but saying that they are not being felt, no, I disagree with you on that. Now back to you, James. Despite the disability law, reports shows 98% of public buildings are not accessible to persons with disability. What would you say to this?
Thank you so very much. On the side of the public buildings of government institutions and parastatals. Yes. Today, as I'm talking to you, there is a circular, a service-wise circular from the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to each and every government institution for compliance with the accessibility regulations to provide accessibility for persons with disabilities. Secondly, there is also a meeting between all permanent secretaries and the head of service of the Federation. She have included issues of accessibility for persons with disabilities in all of their engagement in all ministries. Now, if anybody can claim ignorance about this, I don't feel it is appropriate because there is enough of awareness. This document here, we have distributed now over 200 copies of this to different agencies of the federal government of Nigeria.
I also have to ask
to provide this for them, to create the necessary awareness for them, to comply with the provision of the law.
I also have to ask you on the awareness, the enlightenment. Now, how aware are the persons living with disability of this act? Because you have to know your rights for you to seek redress in court when your right is being violated. So to what extent have you gone in kind of creating awareness about persons living with disability?
There are some reasonable awareness within the disability community. Today, as I'm talking to you, we receive complaints, report from the disability community about abuse of their right in different places. As I'm talking to you, we have activated the investigation unit of our commission and we have started receiving report. We invite anybody where we receive a report about discrimination against persons with disabilities. We have handled that of KFC. We have also handled that of Ranoia and different other responsibilities. So when it comes to accessibility, we deal with that accordingly, and therefore awareness within the disability community is rising. We have a meeting with different disability community leaders as well as a head of agencies on disability from different states. As you can see that by the time we assume office, the number of states that passed disability law has improved. Today we have about 23 states that have disability laws in their respective states. Out of the 23, we have 13 of these states that already have agencies established. Just the last 3 weeks, we had a meeting with the head of these agencies to sit down together with them, and then chairman of our associations from the 36 states of the federation, all of them converged here in Abuja. We brought experts who trained them about this accessibility regulation and the expectation from the disability community, and how the disability community can be able to support the commission in enforcement of these provisions of the regulations in their own respective states. We want to be receiving complaints. We want to be receiving complaints about this, and once we receive it, we are going to act on it accordingly to make sure that whoever is concerned is invited to come and account for his misdeed towards the disability community.
Thank you very much, James. Now back to you, Paul. You rightly mentioned that the laws are there, but implementation becomes the problem. Now, in your opinion, what should be done to ensure, because of course the government has started, like you rightly said, they've started in the right, this is a step in the right direction by making the announcement. So people are now at alert. Now, what more can be done to ensure that this act is being implemented to the letter?
Okay. Yeah. A follow-up to what the ES have said on the efforts of the government engaging the various bodies that are connected to this. Yeah, I think also that there's a need for expansion of that, engaging other disability organizations who are at the grassroots, because one of the things I discovered is that most of the states where disability law has been enacted and agency created, these agencies are mere political, creation. There is no fund backing. You go there, they will tell you that we don't have fund to do anything. It's like giving somebody a handset, there is no SIM card. So, and playing politics with disability is as good as blood money. It's as good as doing ritual, because it is more than immoral to do that. So, and when you have such agency and there is no funding for them to do 1 or 2 projects, then it's useless, because they cannot, even if you like gather them to Abuja 1 million times, they will do nothing. So because the ideal thing would have been, after engaging them, they go back to their states, gather the grassroots from the local government to whatever, and engage them. So there is need for more funding. There's a need to empower these state agencies and even the federal own agency. There's also need to actually fund them the more so that they can really engage, because their engagement is not enough. And if I know that if you have a private chat with my friend, he will open up and let you know that, look, the funding is not there. It's limited by funding. So, and to what extent can we continue with this? So if federal government can give 90 billion naira, subsidy to Hajj, which has a need for such kind of bailout.
Thank you very much, Paul. I really wish we had more time for that, but this is where we draw the curtain for today's episode of Nigeria Today. A very big thank you to Executive Secretary, National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, James David Lalu. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution. And also via Zoom, we had Ihiakwaba Paul E., Executive Director, Global Hope and Justice Incorporated, a disability and human rights organization. He's also a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution.
I appreciate it.
And thank you for being part of the program. Don't forget Nigeria Today airs every weekday at 7:30 and NTA News 24. You can also check out this episode and others on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. I am your carrier, Clinton, saying bye for now.